It did.
Good morning, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Good morning, Chairman.
Hello?
Good morning, Joe.
Hey, it's Tripp. I don't think they've gotten on yet.
Hi, can you hear us?
Okay. Who's this? Tripp Tollison. What's up, Tripp? What's up, Commish? How you doing, Commish? What's
Good.
up, DNR? How you
Good morning,
doing?
Commissioner Williams.
I'm good. We're just, I'm sitting here at my hangar. I got to head north at about 9. Well, skids up at 10, so I told Jones, I hope we got a quorum.
Yeah. I tried
Gentlemen,
to say hey to you at Carl Alexander's funeral, but
Good morning, gentlemen. You're live in the conference room.
But that was a nice send-off.
Man, what a crowd.
Good morning, gentlemen. We're getting ready to start.
Where you going up north? You flying up to mountains?
We got a, there's a memorial every year at the training center for fallen officers around the state, sheriffs, policemen, firemen, and of course Stan Elrod, was killed in the line of duty, one of my game board captains this year, and so they'll be honoring him. So taking a couple of board members from down here up, and then
I got you.
back today, and then drive back up tomorrow for meetings Thursday, and then back down here, drive Thursday night back down here.
This machine's
Hello?
good. You found them.
You kill a gobbler this
Here's-
season?
Mark and Joe, as far
What
as I
now?
can tell.
You
Thank
shoot
you.
a gobbler this season?
I did not. I didn't go a lot, but I didn't have any success. The population's so down on my farm, we didn't even hunt them. We don't just laid off of them a year. It's down everywhere in the state, but especially down there.
Yeah.
So, how about you?
We called a couple, didn't do so well. I mean, my dad killed a nice bird, probably one of the best he's ever shot, but that's it.
Yeah.
All right, interrupt your concentration just to say good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
And it is good to see y'all.
Good morning.
Well, now I notice you're masking.
I'm sometimes masking, sometimes not, so
Okay.
just bear with me.
We had a nice ribbon cutting
I
over
was
at
belling
Getaway
at the church and I was belling here.
State
Are you
Park
fully
the other day.
vaccinated, sir?
I'm fully vaccinated.
Then you're not
I made
rebelling.
a
Did you well,
point of
Senator?
getting vaccinated
It is nice. You need to stop by there if you're over that way.
Yeah, so anyway,
Yeah, I'll check it out.
good to be here this morning.
morning. Thank you for taking the helm.
And then we're
And
under.
then it looks like y'all, one's blue too, right?
You were walking towards me.
I'm gonna go and get a cable real quick.
Got started
Okay,
there.
I'll not let him start till you get back.
That's right down the
That
street from the
yours?
house.
Joy?
Yes, good morning.
Hey,
Checklist.
How are all of you?
we're good.
I need Jones to put on his mic. Silence your cell phone, girlfriend.
This is Joe. I hope you all can hear me.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Bob's gonna officially chair. Yeah. I think so far on the phone is Mark, Tripp, and Joy, and you. Unless somebody else has called in.
Barely. I can barely hear
Barely.
it. Not
Not
good.
much better.
Okay. Ready, friend? Okay, good enough for me. Who's back? They're good. Where's my checklist? I have not. Craig.
Good morning. Welcome to the committee session of the Jekyll Island Authority May Board Meeting. We have Commissioner Mark Williams, Chairman Joe Wilkinson on the phone with us. Do we have anybody else who's joined us by phone?
I'm here. This is Tripp Talk.
Thank you.
That's Tripp.
Oh, Tripp. Good morning, Tripp. Thank you. Let's see here. We'll start by calling the roll.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Joseph B. Wilkinson, Jr.
Here.
Mr. Bob Kruger.
Here.
Mr. Bill Gross. Appears to be absent for now. Commissioner Mark Williams.
Here.
Miss Joy Birch Meeks.
Here.
Dr. Buster Evans.
Here.
Mr. Tripp Tullison.
Here.
Mr. Glenn Willard.
Here.
Mr. Dale Atkins.
Here.
Sir, you have a quorum today.
And for the record, we do have a quorum. We're streaming online at the JIA YouTube channel. There were no public comments received online for this meeting. Please note, ordinance comments are separate and are included with the ordinance agenda item. Moving forward, the first item of business is the Historic Preservation and Conservation Committee. We'll hear an update from Mr. Ben Carswell, our Director of Conservation on Comprehensive Waste, Recycling, Assessment, and Planning. Ben?
Thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to talk to you all this morning to give you some information on a project that that went forward last year under partnership with University of Georgia, with a group through the College of Engineering that's called the Circularity Informatics Lab. And, fancy words there, but what we're talking about is waste, and the term circularity meaning circularity of materials, so less waste because things can be reused, recycled, that sort of thing. And so, you know, we have aspirations to reduce our waste footprint on Jekyll, and what I've advocated for is that we take a comprehensive approach, and before we embark on this, that, or the other waste reduction strategy, that we have a comprehensive assessment of where we are now and what our baselines are, gather some data, and then come together with a coordinated plan to move forward that involves all of our departments and buy-in from everyone. So just want to run through a little bit of what that study produced, and there is a report that's associated with it. And it was really a partnership with UGA. We pitched in a total of about $6,500, which offset some of their expenses, but certainly not all of them. And they had a real interest in taking part in this with us. We've been utilizing an app for many years through the Georgia Sea Turtle Center that they produced about 10 years ago to log and track all the items of marine debris that our volunteers pick up on the beaches and around the island. So we have a long-standing relationship with this group. What they did back in February, this was before any of us were aware what was coming with the pandemic, they literally sorted through our trash to produce a quantitative characterization of what our waste stream is here on the island. And mapped across the island where all our waste bins are, where all our recycling bins are. You can see those on the map on the screen, yellow for recycling, dark blue or black for waste, or for non-recyclable waste. And so what this produced, I say it's quantitative, it's very much so, is an average waste composition for the island. And so we see that about 41% of our waste stream is plastics, or excuse me, 21% is plastics. And of that fraction, about 18% is recyclable, but it's going out in the trash and ultimately going to the landfill. And so that's, if you compare us to another municipality, that's a little bit higher. I think you'd expect that because we're a tourist-based destination, and so we have some challenges that other municipalities might not have. But the key takeaway here is we now have a baseline. We know that right now we've got 18% potentially recyclable plastic in our waste stream that's not being diverted, and so as we work to make improvements to that, that's the number that we're trying to improve from. So I think that's important. And I wanted to speak briefly, in the process of doing this, we felt it was important to find out what's the latest about where, the materials that do go into our recycling stream, where are they ending up? And that has changed over the years. It used to be a materials recycling facility in Savannah, then it was Jacksonville. The current arrangement through Waste Management has all of our material that goes out in our recycling stream going to a facility in Conyers that's run by a corporation called Pratt Industries. Pratt Industries is the largest manufacturer of 100% recycled paper products in the country, and the 5th largest manufacturer of paper, period, in the United States. So it's a big corporation. And they're producing 100% recycled paper. And so they also have this recycling facility. The material that can be sold to regional and domestic markets, they're pulling out. So that's number 1 and number 2 plastics, metals. They're pulling that material out and selling it. The paper goes directly into their feed for their recycled paper products. And then everything else goes into what's called a gasifier. And so essentially it is converted to the non-recyclable plastics, or the plastics that don't currently have a market in the region to be recycled, are converted to energy, which offsets the energy demand and therefore the carbon footprint of that facility. So I was pretty happy to learn all this. I feel good about where our recycling is going currently. We need to continue to track this. A lot of folks know that there's been a shakeup over the past several years in the international recycling markets, and the ongoing story from that is pretty neat, because what's happening is domestic markets are burgeoning and growing in to fill that gap. And so we do know that a proportion of our recyclable material from Jekyll is going back into commerce in the United States and in Georgia, and I think that's a good thing. Lastly, I wanted to touch on one other topic in that sustainability arena because of the renewable energy component. We're very pleased with the performance of the pollinator-friendly landscape at the solar farm on the island that's run by Cherry Street Energy. Having this pollinator-friendly landscape was part of what we negotiated in our lease agreement with Cherry Street Energy, and we're very pleased to see it come to fruition. This past, as y'all know, we had the ribbon cutting about 2 years ago. Just this past February, we worked with Cherry Street Energy. We provided some soil to improve the soil on the site, and seed from about 60 different native plant species was planted. And what you see here is mostly garden crocuses that are coming up. But we're really excited about this partnership, and I think we're on the forefront here of demonstrating how land for solar power generation in coastal Georgia can do more than just generate electricity for people, but can also support wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Ben. Encouraging statistics there.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from any members of the board?
Mr. Chairman, there's one item in this study that is of interest. Well, there are several items of interest, but one in particular. Ben, would you speak to the fact that we have a lot of businesses on Jekyll that have been moving toward recyclables, but they've been spending good money for recyclables that are not the type of recyclables that can actually be recycled?
Yes, thank you, Jones. And that's one of the things that came out of this discussion around this study, is that there's some opportunities for better communication with our businesses and even within our departments. And that is that a lot of folks are trying hard and spending more money, as Jones mentioned, to try to have more eco-friendly products, and customers are demanding that. But one of the places where that unfortunately goes wrong is a lot of the products that are marketed as eco-friendly are a compostable, what's marketed as a compostable form of plastic. And that's all well and good if you're in a locality or a region or a market that has industrial scale composting. That is not the case here. So no compostable plastic on Jekyll Island is finding its way to where it needs to be to biodegrade and become compost. So there are better alternatives. 100% recycled plastic is a better alternative than compostable plastic. So we'll be working to better communicate that message. Incidentally, I wanted to mention that we did confirm that the water boxes that you all have in front of you are recyclable, and so they're going to Pratt Industries and making new paper.
Thank you for that additional information, Ben. Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. By the way, just an item of note here. If there are public comments, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And also, if you have been vaccinated, you may remove your mask. If you have not been vaccinated, keep it on. Having said that, we'll move to the Finance Committee. Mr. Bill Gross.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your board packet, we have the highlights of the Finance Committee. April financial statements. Revenues for April were $2,477,600. Oops, sorry about that. Let me start over. The April financial highlights, revenues. Revenues for April were $632, which is $4,000 less than budgeted for the month. Year-to-date revenues reflect a favorable $1.4 million variance from budget and an unfavorable $190,000 variance from the prior year-to-date. The locations with the largest variances from budget in February, or in April, I think it should say, parking, $197,000 greater than. The weather remained nice and spring break traffic continued to be very strong into April. The convention center was off by $380,000. The center had 14 events, resulting in $86,000 in gross revenue for the month, which covered 18 event days with a total of 2,790 attendees. The campground was $43,000 better than budget. Site rentals and concession sales continued to do better than budget. Revenues reflect a favorable $486,000 from budget for the fiscal year. Hotel motel taxes are better by $41,000. Hotel revenues from March were better than anticipated. Taxes received in April are based on March room revenues. Expenses for April were $1,835,621, which is $277,000 or 13% less than budget for the month. Year-to-date expenses were $2.6 million less than budget and were $2.9 million less than prior year-to-date expenses. The largest expense variances for the month were human resources, off about $101,000 due to vacant positions, both full and part-time. Advertising and sales were under budget by $74,000. Advertising expenses were reduced during the pandemic. Staff is also transitioning into a more digital format instead of print, which also saved money. Repair and maintenance was $49,000 less than budget. Several projects were held back early in the year due to uncertainties with the COVID. Many of these funds will be spent by the end of the year. Contracts were $37,000 under budget. Convention center has several vacant positions. Net operating cash income for April was $642,011, which is $273,000 better than the budgeted net operating income of $369,334. Year-to-date net operating income is $4 million better than budget and $2.7 million better than prior year-to-date income. The April traffic stats. Total traffic count for April was 133,944 vehicles, which was 94,000 more than April of 2020. April 2020 traffic was severely impacted by the pandemic, which explains why this number is so large. As a comparison, April 2021 traffic was 19,011 more vehicles than April of 2019. Year-to-date traffic counts 428,557 vehicles, which is 146,339 more than the prior calendar year-to-date traffic. Hotel reports. April 2021, revenues reported by the hotels are $5.7 million, which is 5.4 more than April of 2020. Occupancy rate was 79.8, which is up from 15.1. Revenues per available room was $166.88, which is up from, I guess it's $158.07, I think, in April of 2020. ADR was $209, which is up from $119. Calendar year to date, year-to-date revenues reported by the hotels is $13.6 million, which is $4.7 million more than year-to-date 2020 revenues. Occupancy rate was 58.1, which is up from 52.3. RevPAR, or revenue per available room, was $102.66, which is up from $73.88 year-to-date 2020. Average daily rate was $176.77, which is up from $141.17. Those are the financial highlights for April. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the financial report for today.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. Any comments or questions from any of the board members? Hearing none, any comments or questions from the members of the audience? Hearing none, we'll move on to Human Resources. Dr. Buster Evans.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have a report from the Human Resources Committee this month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Marketing Committee, Joy Birch-Meeks. Joy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This morning, Alexa and Kevin will be presenting for the Marketing Committee. We have some great news about several awards and more good news regarding Convention Center group business. So if Alexa and Kevin would come forward.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. So I am elated to present to you some awards that we were recently received, the Hermes Creative Awards. If you recall, we have won some of these for our 3181 magazine in the past. So this year, we recently submitted a couple marketing initiatives that we had in the works, one of them being the Jekyll Island Junior Ranger Field Guide. This was a wonderful collaboration with our conservation department and in particular our park ranger led by Ray Emerson. And that received a Platinum Award, which is one of the highest awards that you can receive for this designation. And that was for the illustration and design in partnership with, which really all of these were kind of led under the direction of our creative director, Claire Davis. She is here today. And we received a gold award for our Holly Jolly Jekyll creative campaign and website design. And this was from this past season. We also received a gold award for the Conservation Master Plan. If you all recall, that recently rolled out, and we were able to kind of sneak it into the awards for this year, and we were excited to see that it had won a gold award for creative design, which is not common for something like a Conservation Master Plan. And so again, that was in partnership with the Conservation Department and led under the direction of Ben. And last, our Honorable Mention Award for our brand campaign that we rolled out in the summer in light of the pandemic. So this was certainly our message to promote distance and space, and that Jekyll was a great place to come. So we were excited to see that that also received an award. And then speaking of our magazine, I wanted to quickly note that we are continuing to work on 3181. I'm excited to be able to say that we're looking to bring that back next year in hopes to get a new issue out this in 2021. And recently we had two stories in 3181 that kind of spawned additional features in other publications, one of them being The Water in the Blood, which was prominently featured in a story about the Wanderer in Smithsonian Magazine. We also had a story in the Service of Others that then turned into another feature in Jacksonville Magazine. So excited to see that the reach of the magazine kind of stems beyond our local area, even regionally, and into national publications, and that those stories are sparking other conversations. One in particular is certainly, both of these are related to the vast Black history on Jekyll Island, and as such, we did recently roll out a landing page that chronicles the timeline of Black history on Jekyll Island. So certainly check that out if you get an opportunity. It's under the menu tab on our website under History. And I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk about our Convention Center group business.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, morning, Board. Very briefly, one slide here. From May of 21 to December of 2022, we just took a snapshot of the group business, and obviously this is coming out of our pandemic year. At this point, this is between our large sports groups and mostly convention groups. We have about 100 groups booked, and some great news there, 20% of that is new business, and that equals 80,000 room nights for our hotel partners, which is roughly $13 million in hotel revenue. So at this point, look to historically, that pace is a record pace. So we will probably, God willing, have a nice record pace for the next year or so. So things are very strong and the ship has been righted. And really, a lot of that work has come from the previous year. So the leads in fiscal 22 to date was 134 groups we sent out to our partners, our hotel partners. The fun part of that is 57% of that was new business. And so that, lent itself to a very strong booking pace for the next, year and a half. And that obviously continues, but we just kind of capped it at the end of 22. And then some big new group highlights. We have the first time ever, the Georgia GOP State Convention is here the first week of June, which will be our largest group probably in history. They're looking at 2,500 attendees. So we're very excited about that. It was a very kind of last minute thing with all the elections that were going on. So we've done, I think the whole island and the teams here at the Convention Center and everybody has done a wonderful job. We're very excited about that. And then another large one, we have been awarded the Georgia Society of Association Executive June 2022 Annual Conference. The last time we hosted that was 1998, so it's been a little while, and a couple changes have taken place on the island, obviously. So Maria Trammell will be up there in Chattanooga presenting that, and we're very excited to host that event. That, just as a quick note, that's about 57% of our convention center revenue is Georgia Association. So that is a very, very big thing to get that down here. So, and that concludes my report. I'd love to answer any questions if you have them.
Questions?
Thank you both, Mr. Chairman. I think it's safe to say that even through the pandemic, the marketing team, along with the rest of the JIA team, continued to work and plant the seeds for when we were coming back into a new sense of normalcy, and their efforts are paying off. And if there are no questions, that concludes our report.
Thank you for that report. Any comments from the members of the board? Good to see the activity coming back. Thank you, Joy. And marketing and sales. We'll now open the floor for public comment. Anybody got any comments? Hearing none, we'll move to the Legislative Committee. Trip Tollison, we have no report there. Committee of the Whole.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
We've been advised by staff in the Attorney General's office that item B, request for quotation number 342, sewer cleaning and mapping award, appeal hearing decision, and item D, assignment of lease for Caroline's Gifts, is null until further notice. And at this time, I'd like to call on Melissa Cruthers to explain this.
Thank you. Yes, here we go. First, I'll take the easy one, Mr. Kruger. The item D, assignment of lease for Caroline's Gifts, that actually does not come from the AG's office. That was a issue that fell through at the very last minute. So there is no assignment to be had currently. So we just asked that that item be removed. Item B, request for quotation, appeal hearing decision. Last board meeting, at the April board meeting, the board awarded RFQ 342 for sewer cleaning and mapping to Robert Civil Engineering. On April 30th, we received a protest of the award from another bidder, Southeast Pipe, sorry about that, Southeast Pipe Survey Incorporated. The summary of the protest, they have several issues, but the main summary is that they state that the work is required to be performed by an entity holding a utility contractor's license. And Robert Civil Engineering is not a licensed contractor, even though its listed subcontractor does hold a utility contractor's license. Southeast Pipe Survey says that it is a licensed utility contractor and was the second highest ranked bidder in the RFQ, and therefore the RFQ should be awarded to Southeast Pipe instead of Robert Civil Engineering. Our current protest procedures, the first step in making a protest, the executive director reviews the protest and makes a determination. The executive director can do a couple of things. He can deny the protest, which means the contract and the work continue as awarded. He can modify the RFQ, cancel the RFQ, or cancel the award. If the executive director denies the protest, the protester can appeal to the board, and then the board then decides whether or not to have a hearing on the appeal. In this case, Mr. Hooks elected to cancel the RFQ to investigate the claims of the protest and reissue a revised solicitation if warranted. Upon initial conversation with the AG's office regarding the protest, we decided to place on the agenda for the board's consideration the decision on whether or not to have a hearing on the appeal. That was the agenda item today. Upon further review by the AG's office, it was determined that there is no appellate right because Mr. Hooks did not deny the protest, but he canceled the solicitation. The protest procedures provide no appeal for a canceled solicitation. As the current protest procedures are written, an appeal is allowed only in the case of a denial of the RFQ. Southeast Pipe has questioned the AG's determination, and the AG is continuing to look into the matter. But at this time, we ask that the agenda item be removed.
You've heard explanation from council. We'll entertain a motion to remove these items from the committee of the whole agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Does everyone understand the process that we're going through? We'll now call for a vote. All in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next item of business, request for proposal number 366, Phase 1 and 2 Archaeological Investigations of the Jekyll Island Golf Courses. Mr. Hooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll recall, board members, that at the last board meeting, when we were talking about the golf master plan, that one of the things that we talked about, one of the items, was that the Historic Resources Department has in the past had some Phase 1 archaeological work completed on golf courses on Jekyll Island. However, in order to totally assess the courses before you make any determinations and have consideration of a golf course master plan, a direction for the future of the golf courses on Jekyll, it's imperative that we complete Phase 1 and also Phase 2 required, where required, archaeological assessments. In your blue folder today, there is an explanation of the areas within the golf courses that have been looked at previously. Andrea has handled this project in the past. I'm going to ask Andrea, if you don't mind coming to the podium to assist with any questions. Andrea, of course, is our curator within the Historic Resources Department, and this is a pretty straightforward RFP looking for consultant to come forward and do Phase 1 and Phase 2 archaeological investigations. It's important that you realize and others realize that during this work, the work would be coordinated with our golf course operations and maintenance so that as little interruption as possible would be experienced. And also in the RFP, we're looking at this work to be underway by the 1st of August. If in fact you approve our going forward with an RFP, then we would come back to you next month with recommendations for a company to conduct this work. Andrea, other items that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I thought I'd just mention briefly the steps involved in the process. It would involve background research to familiarize themselves with the previously identified cultural resources within the project area. Phase 1 archaeological survey to identify any additional archaeological sites within the project area. Phase 2 evaluative testing to assess the significance of those cultural resources. An assessment of effect to provide management recommendations to determine the best ways to mitigate potential impacts to those resources, and then documentation of the archaeological investigations culminating in a final report. And we really think that it would be advantageous to go ahead and do these archaeological investigations now to avoid potential project delays, to add potential cost savings, and also to provide us the information we need to make decisions with consideration of our stewardship responsibilities for those cultural resources. With that in mind, I would like to request board approval to issue RFP 366 as recommended by staff.
Mr. Chairman, I might also add that Andrea Marquin is not only our curator, Andrea herself is an archaeologist. And so it's interesting that even whenever we have a swimming pool being dug on Jekyll Island, that Andrea and her team will go out and make sure that there are no archaeological issues associated. So I think it's good for board members to realize the depth of qualifications that we have within the authority.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there a motion to recommend the approval of RFP number 366, Phase 1 and 2, archaeological investigations of the Jekyll Island golf courses as recommended by staff?
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and second. Is there any discussion? Any questions or comments for the staff? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Next item. Is there a motion we need to discuss? Ordinance O-2021-2, rental of certain vehicles, second reading and consideration of adoption. Melissa?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This was presented as a first reading last month to prohibit the rentals of e-bikes on Jekyll Island. We talked a lot about the safety issues, safety concerns that we were having, and that we felt we needed to put it into an ordinance that no license will be issued for the renting of e-bikes, and that e-bike tours are prohibited, and to also require a license for bicycle tours in general to manage the traffic on our multi-use paths. We did put the proposed ordinance on our website for public review and comment. Comments were through the website were received through May 4th. There was also a lengthy discussion on the local radio show, an editorial in the newspaper, and a few letters to the editor in the newspaper. We did receive comments for and against this ordinance. We actually received many comments, and you have those. Some of the comments were directed more towards banning. They thought we were banning e-bikes altogether on our multi-use paths, and that is not accurate. We are banning the rental of e-bikes. We are, our e-bikes, our ordinance prohibits motor vehicles on our sidewalks. And the way our ordinance is currently written is motor vehicles is as defined in the Georgia Code. And how the Georgia Code defines motor vehicles excludes e-bikes. So while and this is very circular, it's
clearly written by a lawyer. And so while we have the ability under Georgia law to ban e-bikes on our multi-use paths wholly, we are not. If you own your e-bike, you can still come ride your e-bike. And so what we are doing is prohibiting someone coming onto the island and renting e-bikes or delivering them, and I'll get into that in a minute because there was a little bit of a word change in your second reading. So back to the comments, and some people were concerned about handicap access to recreation. And then the comments in favor of the ordinance were concerned about safety on sidewalks. A lot of them had personal, scares about with e-bikes on sidewalks. And so those have all been presented to you. I have changed one bit of language. It's not a substantive change from the first reading to the second reading, and it's to more aptly describe the intention of staff. You will see in line 113 and 114 of the explanation of changes is that we, in the first reading, had said that no person shall engage in the business of renting vehicles on the island or for use on the island. More aptly, it's for renting vehicles on the island or for delivery to the island. So that, like I said before, it's, while they may not be swiping a credit card here on the island, they could, we also don't want them delivering bicycles to the island. Now, so that's that change, and it also goes into, that word change is also in line 118 for no license shall be issued for the renting of e-bikes on the island or for delivery to the island. It is the same thing. So this is presented to you today as a second reading and consideration of the adoption of the ordinance. Mr. Hooks, did you have anything to add?
Sure. A couple of things that I think it's very important for board members to realize. Melissa, if I'm
Yes, I'm sorry.
correct, the e-bikes that are pedal assisted are classified differently than those with a throttle. Is that not correct?
Georgia state law classifies e-bikes into three categories, Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Class 1 is, let me get my cheat sheet, pedal assist, and the speed reached is 20 miles per hour. And then Class 3, let's see. No, I'm sorry. Class 1 and Class 3 are pedal assist, and the Class 2 can be used with just the throttle.
So most people that are riding bikes for mobility issues and want some assistance, they're using the pedal-assisted bikes, because the throttle bikes go 25 miles plus an hour, so that becomes basically a motorcycle. So that's an issue, and I think it's important to understand that because of the Georgia law, we're not excluding someone who has their own e-bike from using a pedal assist e-bike on our bike paths, correct?
That's how our ordinance is currently written, yes, sir.
And there's another issue, or another item in this ordinance that is important, I think, and that is it would prohibit tours, e-bike tours. And the reason for that is we control other types of tours on Jekyll. And that's a capacity kind of issue. And that goes back to the carrying capacity study. And so if you have 20 or 30 people engaged in a tour on the bike path, then that can cause some issues. And so that the prohibition there is beyond e-bikes. That's bike tours, period, correct?
We're requiring a license
A
for
license.
bike tours.
So it would be an attempt to begin to control that, and the decision would then be made whether or not to issue the license. But there is a concern there. I think it's important, too, that board members realize as we look at the capacity study, right now, we already issue licenses for all bike rentals on Jekyll Island. But at the same time, while that means we manage the number of bike rental opportunities, we have not been managing the number of bicycle rentals. But that may be something that in the future will be looked at very seriously, so that we don't have just an infinite number of bike rental options on the island. So it's this idea of looking at how we manage the experience, like the capacity study called for, so that everyone can enjoy the time that they have here on the island. I think that's all I needed to add, but you may have something else.
Yes, sir. On that note, one thing I forgot to mention is we did look into how the National Park Service handles this. They've recently come out with some guidelines and some federal regulations. And really, the National Park Service leaves it in the discretion of the superintendent of the park. And the goal is to allow this type of new recreation, but to also ensure visitor safety and resource protection, and to look at the public health and safety. And piggybacking off what Mr. Hook said about our carrying capacity, that is one of the goals that we were looking at this.
Does that conclude the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Very well. You've heard the presentation regarding the second reading. Is there a motion to recommend the adoption of ordinance number 02021-2, rental of certain vehicles as recommended by staff? I have a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Melissa, the First Amendment to the rental agreement with Lighthouse Trolleys.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Less than a year ago, we came to you for a rental contract with Lighthouse Trolleys. They operate tours with trolleys on Jekyll Island, various just general historic tours, ghost tours, things like that. And we entered into a contract with them for 4 leased parking spaces right outside the Morgan Center, so that they could park their vehicles there and comply with our ordinances. And so since that time, we have received communication from the Club Hotel that where we had agreed to put the trolleys can actually be seen from the little park area outside the Morgan Center. And it can be in wedding photos, and no one wants to make a bride unhappy on her wedding day. So we spoke with Mr. Fendick, who owns Lighthouse Trolleys, and he was agreeable to move his trolleys to another location just on the opposite side of the parking lot. And this is a very minor change, but as our bylaws are currently written, I feel like it does need to come to you before the board. It does nothing other than move his trolleys on the other side of the parking lot. So this is before you for consideration of that amendment.
Thank you. You've heard the presentation by Melissa. Is there a motion to recommend the approval of the First Amendment to the rental agreement with Lighthouse Trolleys as recommended by staff?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Executive Director's Report, Mr. Hooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, have several items to bring to your attention very quickly. A reminder for those members of the board who are on the Finance Committee, June the 2nd at 9:30 a.m. will be the Finance Committee meeting to review budget recommendations for FY22. That meeting will be a remote meeting with public opportunity. And also, if there are board members that would like to participate in that are not members of the Finance Committee, they certainly can call in. The information on that call will be disseminated soon. So that's June the 2nd, 9:30. That's been on the official calendar for the board now for ever since you approved the calendar for the year. So hopefully Finance Committee members have that already marked on their calendars. Today, during the Finance Committee report, you heard a couple of things that Mr. Gross said. One was that one reason that our expenditures are low was because of personnel costs being down. And I've asked Jenna Johnson, who's our HR director, to talk with you a minute about where we are with some of the challenges that we're having right now. Because while from a financial standpoint, that sounds good that our expenditures are down, from an operational standpoint, we have really experienced some challenges in the past few weeks, and we foresee these challenges continuing for the next several weeks as, for instance, group business comes back to the convention center. So Jenna, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So good morning. So right now, I know for our personal circumstances, I know that I think every organization is experiencing similar, but for us, right now, we have 34 positions that are open and accepting applications, which this time of year we do see a higher amount anyway, but 34 is a little bit high for us. Within that, it breaks down to 13 that are full-time, and then the remainder 21 are part-time and seasonal. So of course we're picking up seasonal folks this time of year. And I think in your packet you actually received something that Noel actually put together to kind of show you just in his division, which is the largest division that we have, the number of positions that we have budgeted versus what we actually have staffed. So you can see where some of that shortage is coming from. Majority in landscaping, also park services. So those are the folks that actually are going around and cleaning and taking care of the island for our guests. And these positions are where we're seeing the highest vacancies. These are the positions that don't necessarily require extensive skill or extensive education to actually perform the roles. And so they do pay less than $15 per hour. And we are hopeful that now that the Department of Labor and Governor Kemp has planned to end the participation in federal unemployment benefits, that we should see an increase in folks that are coming back to the workforce. Now, with the positions that are paying less than $15 per hour, obviously we're competing with those benefits and positions that do pay a little bit higher. I believe it was the Department of Labor that said if positions aren't presently paying at least $30,000 a year, then they're going unfilled. And so obviously something in the $10, $11, $12 range is not hitting the $30,000 a year mark. And then locally, I believe someone said $1,650 was the magical number. So certainly one of the things that we take into consideration is not just the hourly rate or the salary rate, but obviously we have to look at, and we'll continue to look at, that total compensation Dr. Evans, he knows exactly how expensive it is to have a pretty nice benefit package that goes along with that rate of pay. So we are pretty hopeful that people will want to come back to the workforce and will take a look at Jekyll. We have actually in the past couple of days, positions that have had 0 applications have actually started to get a few. So maybe with the news reports of benefits going away and opportunities being available, that more people will be willing to come back to work. So we'll continue to take a look at it. We are, just not my office, but all of our hiring managers are acting swiftly. When we do get an application or 2 or 3, we're reaching out to those folks really fast and determining quickly whether or not they would be a good fit for our organization. So, do you have any questions?
Shen, I do have one question. I know that you, on an ongoing basis, you keep up with what it takes to remain competitive, but how long has it been since you've had a comprehensive salary compensation study? And is that something that maybe we need to be looking at in the not-too-distant future?
Yeah, potentially. I think a formal compensation study would be great. I know that they're super pricey, so we constantly monitor the market through various means, whether that be other organizations and what they're paying, what the Department of Labor offers us, or out as far as data. So we're constantly looking at what are other people, and then what I of course like to call is that gas pump research. These companies that are just posting on the side of their building how much they're paying for positions. So yep, definitely be worth it.
I have a few other things. Thank you, Jenna.
Sure.
Related to staffing, Kate Harris, who was one of our managers in sales and marketing that board members are used to seeing at board meetings, she resigned this month. Kate's been with us over 2 years, and she was doing a daily commute from Fernandina Beach, and she resigned to pursue another opportunity. So we wish Kate all the best in her new role. Also, as I mentioned before, Michelle Webb will be leaving us. Next month will be her last board meeting, but I'm pleased to introduce today Anna Trapp, who will be joining us. And Anna is on the front row. Anna, stand up for him. Anyway, Anna, I'm very excited that she's going to be joining us, and actually we've worked it out so she'll be with Michelle for a couple of weeks before Michelle actually has to depart. So we're delighted for that news, even though we're really upset that you're leaving. You just have to know that. We have, as you know, we have begun the master plan update, utilizing the Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia, and we are real pleased that the first stakeholder meeting has taken place. There are the notes from that particular session that was led by UGA are in your blue folder, and so we appreciate the involvement of many folks that are listed there in those notes for that first meeting. There will be additional stakeholder meetings, and also board members have been contacted by Michelle to schedule a time for you to individually talk with the consultant team from the University of Georgia, and so hopefully you have already responded to the time that works best for you. Also, the first public session, input session for the master plan is going to be held on June 16th from 5 to 7 here in the Convention Center. And so we will be publicizing that particular opportunity, as well as we anticipate public survey to be distributed in about 2 weeks from UGA, and it's my understanding that that will be public for about a 4-week comment period. So we're waiting on that. Any questions on the master plan or any of the scheduling issues there? You good? Are you okay with that? Okay. The ordinance revision project, I'm delighted to report that we have begun that process after years of discussion. Melissa was not afraid to take that project on, and as you recall, you did approve an RFP, and then you approved a firm to move forward with us on that. We had our first session was that last week? I think so. And that was just an overview session just to talk about the present status of the JIA ordinances with the consulting team, but then they will now come forward with a schedule for public sessions and briefings, and also meetings or updates with the board that would be public as well. But we're really excited to finally get that underway. Also, we've already talked a little bit today about the golf master plan. No additional movement on that at this point, because we are scheduling individual opportunities for board members to actually go out on the course and look at the various components that are called for within the Vincent proposal. And so we appreciate your looking at your calendars and letting us know what days work best for you on that as well. Mr. Chairman, at this time, unless there are questions, that's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board regarding Mr. Oaks' presentation? Hearing none, we'll move to Chairman's comments. We have a lot of activity going on. We have a lot of progress being made. It's an exciting time to be a part of Jekyll Island, and the future looks bright. Joe, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open the floor for any public comments. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Any public comments? Yes, Mindy. Good morning. Please state your name so that someone is not aware.
First, I want to thank you so much for having these remote meetings. I don't think you might not know how many people off island take advantage of listening to them either during the time or at another time. And I think it's been really helpful. It was very helpful to me personally. My husband David and I discovered Jekyll Island in 1983. Very shortly after that, we decided we had to move here, and David being a Russian historian, we didn't have a budget. We had 5-year plans. And we ultimately moved here in '97. In 2005, when revitalization was first being discussed, we formed the Initiative to Protect Jekyll Island to represent the views of Jekyll's visitors, because at that time, unlike now, virtually the only input being sought was from island residents. Jones just mentioned the amount of input that's coming with the master plan. Ben and Jay Exum did an amazing job with public input on the conservation plan. It was just really terrific. So to Ben, I said, this could be really a model for other public organizations. David and I have participated in all the 3 conservation plan iterations, the 2014 master plan, the golf course and capacity studies, and have encouraged our members to give their input. Currently, we are also on the Stakeholder Committee for the master plan update. What I want to talk about here is something I've come up before, but I have to tell you a personal incident. On March 4th, David and I were riding our bikes to St. Andrews like we do every day. We ride the south end, we ride the north end every day. And when we were on the road, we were at the point going to St. Andrews where there's no bike path, so we were on the road. And I was behind David, and a Marriott dump truck passed, and it was really close, and we been on the road with lots of vehicles and trucks, and that was really close. So I was really holding on tight, and I saw the truck pull off the road, and I couldn't see David, and he was on the ground. And it was like one of those things in a movie where, like, I was walking, and then, but it's something, my body and my mind were in another place, and he was just laying there. I thought he was dead. I couldn't see he was breathing, but he was unconscious, and EMS was wonderful. They came and took him to the hospital. He had a concussion, shoulder injuries, a deep leg wound, but he wasn't paralyzed or brain injured or dead, as I feared when I saw him lying there. I've come before you other times, and many have also about comments about safety concerns on Jekyll Island. What happened on that day made my husband and I reflect on public well-being, safety for the island, and a much broader perspective as well, of course, a personal perspective. So we thought of different things. One, Jekyll Island's mission statement. As stewards of Jekyll Island's past, present, and future, we're dedicated to maintaining the
Thank you for your comments, but you've run over time. You can continue that with Jones after the meeting.
Well, I gave Jones some suggestions and thoughts about how public safety might be regarded. I hope you'll take a look at them. We put a lot of time and effort into this. It's proposals and suggestions. I'll send Melissa.
Thank you for those
I
comments.
have a copy, thank you.
I mean, Michelle, so you can do it last time.
Any other comments, any other public comment? Hearing none, we will adjourn the committee session of the board. Does anyone need a break? We'll move into the board meeting agenda then. If you're not going to stay for the board meeting, fine. If you wish to leave as a member of the audience, please feel free to do so at this time. We now open the May 18, 2021 board meeting of the Jekyll Island Authority. Michelle, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Joseph B. Wilkinson, Jr. Mr. Joseph B. Wilkinson, Jr. is absent.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bob Kruger.
Here.
Mr. Bill Gross.
Here.
Commissioner Mark Williams has dropped off the line. Miss Joy Birch Meeks.
Here.
Thank you. Trip Tollison.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Buster Evans.
Here.
Mr. Glenn Willard.
Here.
Mr. Dale Adkins.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum today, sir.
Thank you. First item of business, we've been advised by staff in the Attorney General's office that item 3, request for quotation number 342, sewer cleaning and mapping award, appeal and hearing decision, and item 5, assignment of lease for Caroline's Gifts, is null and void until further notice. Is there a motion to remove these items from the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? We've had the discussion one time from Melissa. There are no changes.
No, sir.
All in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. First action item, minutes of the April 20th, 2020 board meeting. You've had an opportunity to review the board minutes from that meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Request for proposal RFP number 366, Phase 1 and 2 Archaeological Investigations of Jekyll Island Golf Course. This is a committee of the whole motion. No second or no motion or second is required. All in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Ordinance O-2021-2, rental of certain vehicles, second reading and consideration of adoption. This is a committee of the whole motion. No other second is required. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. First Amendment to rental agreement with Lighthouse Trolleys. This is a committee of the whole motion. No other second is required. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. That concludes the business of the board. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Is there a second? Second. All in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your participation.
We could.
Playing.